You know I have this weird obsession with the DLR, right? Well, if you're new to this channel, I have this weird obsession with the DLR. The DLR, or Docklands Light Railway as its mum calls it when it's in trouble, has a complicated history. I've done a few videos covering this, but basically the story is this. In the late 1970s, the docks were largely derelict in London. An organisation called the London Docklands Development Corporation was formed to revitalise them. New transport links would be needed, but the Conservative government of the time was pretty anti-rail and wasn't keen on spending a lot of money. A light railway was considered to be the ideal solution. Light rail was something London Transport were quite keen on playing with. The Tyne and Wear Metro opened in 1980 and revitalised the old Tyneside commuter lines. There were a few railways around London that were either very uneconomical or had been closed altogether. At the same time as the Docklands was under consideration, London Transport were also looking at the possibility of introducing light rail on the route from Finsbury Park to Muswell Hill. This is now the Parkland Walk, which I've also done a video on. I'll link in the description below. Also around Croydon. I don't know what happened to the one in Croydon. I presume it didn't come to pass. But the Docklands was the perfect test bed. There were abandoned track beds, the area was being redeveloped anyway, and there was the economic impetus to make it happen. At the time, though, no one was really sure how light rail should work. Later on, systems like the Lille Metro and the Vancouver Skyrail would give some handy pointers, but that was in the future for the builders of the DLR. So serious consideration was given to the idea of trams. Trams were a proven technology. The concept would have been very similar to how the Croydon tram link turned out. I was lying about not knowing earlier. Power would come from overhead wires, and it would partially run along the road. The tram would start, or finish if you like, at Aldgate East Underground Station. It would run underground before coming to the surface just east of Fenchurch Street, where it would use the old London and Blackwall track, which, ironically, had gone out of business for passengers because of competition from trams. Beyond Blackwall, the line would continue to Beckton, much as it does today. There would also have been a branch to Island Gardens, again as happened. This would partially use the trackbed of the old Millwall Extension Railway. Where things get really interesting, and note that your idea of interesting may vary from my own, was at Poplar. The light railway would use the trackbed of the North London Railway from Poplar to Bow Church, which again is what we actually got. But then at Bow, it would turn off and continue along the street to Mile End, where it would again connect with the underground. So as I often ask in these videos, why didn't this happen? Lots of reasons. The most obvious was money. As I said, the government of the late 70s was not a fan of spending money on railways. The deal was that they could build their line, but they had to cut costs back to the bone. So, no connection with the underground. Tunnels are expensive. Instead, the DLR was to terminate just outside the city at the abandoned Minories station, or Tower Gateway as it is now known. And so you have that annoying walk between Tower Hill and Tower Gateway. Another reason was the difficulty of street running. If the trains ran along the Mile End Road, there was the risk that they'd get held up by traffic jams, which of course would impact the rest of the line. One point I'd make here is that where trams have been introduced, they've actually reduced traffic jams. The one in Croydon has been credited with reducing the number of car journeys through the town centre by up to a third. I'm not saying there wouldn't be a problem, but maybe not as big a problem as planners thought. But one of the biggest factors was, oddly enough, a stroke of luck. In the very early days of planning the DLR, it was hoped to take over the British Rail line from Bow to Stratford. But British Rail nixed the idea for reasons that were kind of stupid. That line had closed in 1948 because the cost of electrifying it was considered too high for the amount of traffic. But then British Rail decided that they wanted to keep it anyway, just in case. They electrified it, despite it being too expensive, and ran 2 passengerless trains a day to keep the wires clean. In 1985, a bill was passed to enable the DLR to take the British rail line to Stratford over. "Fine," said BR, "you can have your stupid railway, we didn't want it anyway." I'm paraphrasing there. This new arrangement was far preferable to terminating at Mile End because it gave them access to lots of East London commuter lines as well as the Central line. Later on, of course, the Jubilee line would join them. There may have been a bit of a propaganda element to the change, and here I'm going to get a little bit tinfoil hat on you. You see, the main function of the DLR, the main reason the government agreed to it in the first place, was that it would regenerate the Docklands and convince people to invest, so they wanted the most state-of-the-art railway they could get, within budget. So, overhead wires and traffic jams were out, driverless trains and elevated railways that everyone could see were in. In the end, the DLR we got was quite different to the late 70s plan. In the intervening time, other cities would gain experience in light rail that London Transport could learn from. But there is an odd little postscriptum to all this. The first DLR trains, the P86s, got sold off to Essen in Germany in 1991, where they were used for street running. Hi all, I hope you enjoyed this street running video. If you did, then please do hit the like button, share and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you're kept up to date when I release a new video. It all helps the channel to grow and makes me pathetically grateful. If you didn't enjoy it, I guess you've recently had to walk from Tower Gateway to Tower Hill. Anyway, I'll see you again very soon. Cheerio.